What's going on, everybody? This is George Khalife, and it's episode 17 of Let's Grab Coffee. I'm here with Shauna, Arnott, lead producer and host of Haste Hustle, the best event in Toronto. I actually went to it recently, so it's a sales and marketing event. She brings some of the best speakers like Gary V, Casey Neistat, a lot of my friends like Manu, Bobby, Michaela, Kim, if you're watching this, shout out to you. It's a jam-packed event, but she does a lot of really, really cool things. Super excited to have you, Shauna.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. That's a really nice introduction. I'm
you should use this.
That, but yeah.
You should use this more often as a segue.
I feel like I should pay you or something.
How much do you charge? So tell us, give us, I guess, a bit of an overview. I didn't want to, I guess, ruin the limelight, but tell us a bit about who you are and how you got started.
Sure. Well, I've been in event planning for about 6 years. I went back to school after a few years of working in the mining industry, and then took event management at Niagara College. Okay. And then I started working. I actually worked for Niagara College and for the Niagara Parks Commission and for a couple of other companies. And I really liked that, but I also knew that I was an entrepreneur. Like I knew that I had these great ideas. I knew I needed to execute on them, and it was just sort of a matter of time for me. So I was working for a company out of the States, doing some, and they were technically clients of mine. So I ended up finding this client out of the States, and I was planning events for them all over the world, and I loved it. I'm like, this is what I know and I love. So, but I also knew that I was restricted to their vision for the events, right? And the vision was around their mandates for their company. And so I had these great ideas of bringing something really big to the Niagara region, which is where I live. Yeah. And so one night on Super Bowl Sunday 2 years ago, and I remember it being Super Bowl Sunday because Gary V had actually responded to an Instagram message that I sent him. And randomly. Wow.
And that would typically never happen.
No.
So, set the stone.
Well, he just, like not a message, it was a comment.
Okay.
So he commented back, and I was like, and it was nothing to do. Like, it was just that he was staying in a hotel. I could see that he had checked in there on his Instagram. Wow. And he was staying at this hotel that I had booked for my clients. And so I just said, hey, how's the hotel? And he responded back saying, it's great. And it wasn't the comment that meant anything. It was the fact that he commented. And in that very moment, because I'd been sort of ruminating over what kind of event I needed to do in Niagara, it was like the everything just kind of came together. And I was like, we need to do a business event. We do all sorts of, we're known for wine and waterfalls and concerts and all these fun things, but we also have a great business area. So I was like, let's do some business events here. And so I'm like, I need to bring Gary to Niagara. So that was my whole thing. And so then over time but it was also like, I need to build up entrepreneurs. So over time, it kind of evolved because I sort of saw the writing on the wall. And so we had that event. It was awesome. And Casey came, and Manjeet Minhas, and John Dick from HubSpot, and Gary, and lots of others. It was phenomenal. But it was a real challenge. Year one is never, ever easy when you're doing events. And so, I took a pretty big loss on that event, and it was a big challenge for me. But, over the course of the year, but at that moment, though, Gary said to me, that he really liked the event, and he appreciated the hard work I'd put in, and recognized that this happens to a lot of people. And he said, I will come back and do another event with you for free. Wow. If you want to, continue forward. And so, of course, I was going to say no, right?
No,
but the thing about that is, it's not like he handed me, a wad of cash that paid off my debt. He handed me an opportunity. Right. And the thing about opportunity is you still have to work really hard for it.
Of course.
So
you still have to execute. You have to put together the event. I mean, it's not.
Oh yeah, it was so much work, and it was still a huge challenge, and I was starting in a deficit, so that's hard, right? So anyway, that's where. So then I managed to make it through. I got some great supporters. I have a really, really strong support network, and great people around me. And so we put on Generation Now a few weeks ago, and it was amazing, and everything kind of is now back on track, and now I have this great brand that I'm really proud of, and we're doing all sorts of other things. And then just as a side note, I do also have a whole side of my business that plans events for corporations. Yeah, so I have clients that I do that for too. So yeah, I don't know, it's good, and I love it.
And let me just, I sort of want to pick on one thing, because I think for a lot of people listening, like when they hear you sort of, DM or comment on something that Gary had posted, I mean, so when I tried to say like he typically never answers, it's not. He actually is one of the few leaders who really engages with the community.
Yeah.
But because he gets so much of it, sometimes it's obviously difficult to get his attention. So the fact that you had, you took the time to do it, you hustled your way through, it's almost like that scrappiness that you need.
Yeah.
How much of that is important, do you think, in this world?
I think, yes, getting scrappy is.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, it's important. I mean, especially when you're, it's not like, if you have a big budget and big, big networks and all these things, it can get you a little soft, I think. And so, but when you're challenged and you have to do this yourself and you have to start, like, who talks about it really well is Damon John in his book, The Power of Broke.
Right.
He talks about how you kind of have to know every part of your business and you have to do it all at the beginning by yourself. And that's kind of how I started. I had to learn how to build a website until I got a sponsor to take it over. And I had to learn how to, market, and I had to learn how to sell, and I had to learn how to do all these things. And I didn't do all of them really well in the first year. I got better as I kept going, and there's still lots of lessons to learn. I had to learn how to do the accounting. I had to learn how to do the, everything. And right down to, like even now, I'm still like doing a lot of the nitty gritty that typically in a larger organization, you'd have someone pass it off to. And so, yeah, I think that's what they mean when they say get scrappy. You have to do a lot of it yourself. You have to be willing to stay up late at night and finish writing proposals so that you can have them submitted by a certain time. And you're working on one project for a client over here. And then over here, you're like, okay, I got to meet with sponsors and I got to sell this ticket and I got to, or whatever. So
it's a lot on the go.
It's just, you have to be so organized. And you also have to recognize your limitations, because that I think is hard for some of us to recognize.
And one other thing I think you do very well is because you recognize those limitations. I mean, you have superpowers in 100 things, which is great. And what you also do is you actually package a team around you that can fill those gaps, which makes the event successful. I mean, in that.
Oh
that
yeah,
way.
like
that's
the
right?
team that you have around you is what makes you successful. Like there's absolutely no way I could have done anything that I've done without the people that have supported me and supported me through the hardships and supported me and done amazing jobs. So I absolutely give credit to every single person that has contributed to the events. From right down to promotional partners and people who
evangelists, ambassadors,
everyone. And like I have good friends that put their, like even people like Ian Zabo who spoke at my event. Amazing guy. He put his whole business aside for 30 days to help me generate awareness and sales for Generation Now. Like unbelievable. Just I can't even explain to you how gracious that was. I don't know. It's just amazing to me.
Now, and I know, and obviously we've had the chance to sort of chat aside from this podcast, but running a really successful event and having that brand behind it, it's something you've really wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
Doing that in Toronto, especially, obviously I go to a lot of the conferences too. There's so many events here. It's a pretty saturated market in that respect. Knowing that going in, I kind of want to talk about sort of knowing that there will be challenges and how you overcame them by being persistent, but also finding that value prop which makes you and your events unique versus what's already out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of great events, and I support a lot of them as well. I think the trick for me is I just found the mission that I wanted to pursue, and what I wanted to pursue was supporting emerging entrepreneurs and closing this knowledge gap of things. So like for Generation Now, it was closing the knowledge gap of, our students are taught about the business world as it was 30 years ago, and they get out into the real world and it's so different. And so there's this big gap. And I'm like, okay, I want to help close that. With my next events, I'm doing events on blockchain. It's all about closing that knowledge gap. There's a lot of people out there that don't know anything, and there's, so for me, it's finding those gaps and supporting that knowledge gap and supporting emerging entrepreneurs. And then just having a solitary focus on that and not worrying about any of the other events, because at the end of the day, there's still, I truly believe that there's room for everybody. And if you're doing something unique and special and you're, doing it well, then people will want to go. And I think, I don't even worry about that. I mean, I just don't even think of the I know people see it as competition. I don't. I just see it as, my event is this, and I'm just going to focus on making this really great, as great as I can. And, like we face challenges. Like there's certainly things that go wrong, and, there's things that went wrong at this event that I'm like, okay, I got to figure that out and do it differently.
Can I talk quickly about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be my next point, because so a really, really good promoter, I typically look up to, in a sense, is Dana White, who's the president of UFC, and they put together sports entertainment, right? I mean, it's a little bit of a different context, but one of the things he says is like at every single event or every single fight or UFC event, there's always tons of things that go wrong. Yeah. The key to a successful planner and promoter is to make sure that nobody sees them. Right, and so is that something that you go through? Like, it's
for sure. I mean, I think that was very true of Haste and Hustle.
This one, or
the last one?
Okay.
A year ago.
A year ago.
I think there was definitely. I mean, well, people did see it, but not really. I think at the end of the day, it was mostly unseen. The craziness that was going on behind the scenes. Yeah. At this event, there were some things that were seen for sure that I was like, okay, this is This is just a result of an under-resourced event, and it happens. But at the end of the day, I feel as long as I deliver on the content and the experience as a whole, I'm still proud of it. Right. And I think there's and for me, little things are always going to kind of creep in. But yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, I wish no one would see them, but there is.
Also, let me context is UFC is a $4 billion company. Yeah. It's a very different sort
totally different, but still, but it's still an event company, and events like I remember when we were in event school, our teacher saying, like there's always going to be something that went wrong. And I remember this girl saying to me, she was in my class, she's like, I hate that they say that, because that doesn't have to be the case. But the reality is, it is the case. Something will always just go wrong, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It can just be like last year we had a major snowstorm to contend with, and Gary Vaynerchuk and Casey Neistat were stranded in New York. And came in late. They actually were supposed to come in the day before. They missed the VIP party that they were supposed to be at, and but weather. I mean, who knows?
You can't control that.
Can't control the weather, right? And even though we had made provisions for the weather, and so
how do you keep yourself calm in those? I mean, especially like real time.
It's really funny because people always comment on that about me. Yeah. About how nothing rattles me, and I don't know how I do that. I just
has it always been sort of the way you are? Like,
I think so. Yeah.
It's not like you do anything.
No, I've always been that way.
No meditation, no breathing, like.
No, it's internally.
Internally, maybe.
I'm freaking out.
Oh, okay.
For sure. You just would never know.
So you keep a poker face, but
yeah, I guess so. But it's not good. It's like because I'm like seriously freaking out. Like with that plane situation last year, I was losing my mind. Like
I mean, these are your
my two biggest speakers were stranded, and John Dick actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And they ended up. I mean, I ended up having to like call in favors from airlines and stuff. And
the shit you'll do when events go wrong.
And we booked their flights at like 12:30 at night, and they flew out at 8 in the morning. And I was on the phone. I had to put seats on hold for them with the airline, and then I had to phone their agents to get them to book it. It was nuts. And we had been back and forth all day. Wow. Like it was, and meanwhile,
there's still everything else.
Well, the event was already on because the event was 2 days. And so the first day of the event was already going on. I was trying to run that. And at the same time, I'm dealing with the flight situation to get those guys in. And it wasn't just them. It was also John Dick from HubSpot because he was coming from Boston. And the snowstorm was the entire eastern seaboard. So that was a bit of a challenge, but I'm glad I can laugh about it now. It was hard. I mean, there was a variety of issues last year, but most of them were unseen.
It's probably also good that you're tested with these limits too, because at one point in time they're going to come. And at least if you're equipped with past situations, then if they come up in the future, you're almost like, oh, this is not bad, Yeah,
that's sort of true. It's funny. Even my son said that at this event, that someone commented to him about how calm I was, and he said, well,
You should have seen what happened.
You should have seen what happened last year. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of true. Like, you do kind of get, you do cut your teeth on some of those harder things, right? But I don't know. At the end of the day, I truly believe there's a solution to everything. And it's just about sitting and figuring it out.
Right.
And
staying calm, really finding a solution, not panicking.
Yeah, because I've never had a situation go so bad that, my friend always comments to me, actually, she runs a hospital. And she said to me, Shauna, like in your job, in my job, when things go wrong, people die. And I think I sometimes think about that. This is a little bit morbid. I know. I'm sorry, but
it's a good.
If Gary Vaynerchuk didn't show up for that event, it sucks and it's not cool and whatever. But at the end of the day, like,
you still have your health.
Yeah, no one's dying.
Yeah.
Like it's it's just an unfortunate situation. But you have to kind of get that perspective sometimes.
Yeah. That's what it seems like. Your perspective is not only strong, but you're constantly reminding yourself that, like, or also your conditioning. I think you're constantly conditioning so that if that happens, yes, obviously you're going to be upset. I mean, real time, these are human emotions.
Yeah.
You might freak out, you might panic and whatever, but really, 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 at the end of the day, you're going to be like, look, it happened. Yeah. Now what? Yeah. What, I'm going to go sit on the corner and cry? Like, it's already happened. Yeah. How am I going to deal with it now?
I know. And there's just certain things you can't avoid. I can't avoid a snowstorm. I can't avoid.
You're gonna blame, like.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I just think it's about being cognizant that there is always a solution.
Is that your biggest sort of learning experience throughout these events, or?
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
That
handling pressure.
Yeah,
is that how you say it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then also just working through the adversity, because adversity doesn't necessarily have a point in time, right?
Okay.
It lingers. So, if something happens, or, like if you go through a major loss in your company, that's not just a moment in time. That's something that you're kind of continually dealing with all the time.
Right.
And so.
And you feel the effect.
You feel the effect
constantly,
for a year or longer, depending on what your situation is. So I think it's also recognizing that adversity is a challenge that you kind of always are facing, and you just have to keep going. Right. And it's sort of cliche to say. I know you get to the top of the mountain and then suddenly you get to go down.
Right. Kind of like a roller coaster too, right? I mean,
yeah. And I think the trick is to just keep climbing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is it for you that, like, I mean, when you say keep climbing, I know family is very important to you because I know you, but to people watching this, like, what really makes you get out of bed and just keep grinding this thing out day in, day out and really trying to grow it? What makes you climb the hill?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, yes, I need to support my family, but for me,
personally,
I couldn't do that another way.
You're right.
I mean, for me, I truly love people. Like, I love helping people, and I knew I was not a nurse or those types of really hands-on kind of helpers, right? And I don't think I could have ever done a job like that, but like. Having the ability to provide an opportunity that helps somebody move forward in their career and their ability to learn and grow as an entrepreneur and human, that actually makes me so happy. Like,
you're almost like a springboard.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, I get these emails sometimes, and they're telling me, like, how these events have affected life and all these good things that have happened to them because of what they learned and who they met and this, that, and the other. And I think, holy moly, like that's the best gift I could ever get. I don't do it to make money. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to make some money, but like I'm not sitting here trying to become some multimillionaire on my hill of coins. I just want to. I really truly love helping people, and I think that this is the best way I know how.
Yeah, and that's interesting to me too, because like I think what you're really trying to do is build a legacy, not for the sake of building one, but on the sake that you've helped others. Mm-hmm. That's what your legacy would be built on, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what these platforms are doing.
Yeah.
For these events, and I mean, for anybody attending Haste Hustle, they'll know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Especially when you give a platform like that to younger entrepreneurs and give them a voice, and let them talk about their story, because you can learn from a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I think that's also what conferences haven't been doing. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you have to be at a certain threshold, and not to take anything away. I think age and maturity and experience have their respect.
Yeah.
but you can also learn from different types of people at different levels.
Absolutely.
You had Jesse, for example, come on. I mean, such a creative guy, young, ambitious, and who find me someone who can learn from his way of scrappiness, right? Or his hustle. Like, I mean,
even anybody
can take something from it, you know?
No, like even I've learned from it and benefited from it.
Right.
And that's what I think too. And I think sometimes we have to look back in order to see what's ahead.
Right.
Because, you know, when I look at Jesse, he's only 17 or 18 or however old he is, young. But he's doing things so differently. And yet that is what's moving us into the future, those types of tactics, right?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners need to be looking.
Yeah.
And
openness is forwards and backwards too.
Yeah.
So you know, for me, obviously, like I think there's a lot of potential that you can learn from any, first of all, any generation, but also any age, any story, any level, any title.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's value in being open at all fronts, not just us looking upwards, but also, I guess, you know, older generations looking backwards, and really, like, that's what I love the most, you know. And I mean, you see this now with Will Smith. I mean, it's kind of going a little more viral, but he's doing vlogs and stuff. And I mean, it's so interesting to see, especially someone who's so well established as an actor. He doesn't have to do that.
No.
But it's crazy to me how he's picking up a camera, and he's doing it literally like you and I would.
I know.
It's hilarious. There's no production team. Maybe he might have one person, but like he's taking a camera and just vlogging his day. When did you ever think Will Smith would do that?
I know, it's true.
You know?
I know some of the, you know, greatest people do it, you know, like even when I look around at, you know, famous celebrities and different people, there's a lot that do it and provide value. It's not just about like, oh, look at me and my fancy life. It's, you know, it's about.
There's substance to it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, certainly there's some that's like annoying that I wouldn't watch, but I think it's, I don't know. I think if we can all just understand, you know, what we all go through and connect on that level, that we're all facing a lot of the same battles. And I think we forget that. You know, like I think we forget that we're more.
Why is that? Like, what do you think is the primary driver behind us forgetting? Because I definitely agree.
I think part of it is that we look around and we get sold on the propaganda that we're all living these like fancy lives when we look at Instagram and stuff, right? And so social media is a double-edged sword. You know, you have these like highlight reels of your life or someone's life, and it's also looks so wonderful.
Yes.
But the reality is, it's just the highlights. You're not looking at their
every day.
Yeah, their morning getting up and looking crappy and, you know, whatever, right? But they, you know, but then I think, you know, at the same time, then you have the ability to do stories and
we can kind of see a bit more.
Where then we get deep and we see, okay, no, that is, so it's, I see that it's shifting a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think we've forgotten because we do kind of buy into the idea that just because someone's living in a big house with a fancy car, that they're rich when really they're just in debt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And also in debt, maybe not financially, but in debt probably.
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of using that as an example. But
it's
like,
true.
Yeah, and yeah, or they're.
And then in terms of like happiness, I mean, there's a lot of things you can be empty with, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think we forget, or just because someone's smiling, they're happy, or just because someone's crying, they're sad. You know, like, and those things aren't necessarily true. I think you know, there's a lot that gets sort of put on for show, or put on for public. Right.
Yeah.
And so if we can have a little, you know, glimpse into people's private lives and the realities that they're facing, then, you know, we start to understand, no, that this is how it really is. We're all kind of in this together.
And what would you say, obviously, because you've not only hosted a lot of speakers in your events, but you've got to know them personally and you've had interactions, multiple in some cases. What would you say, especially with the focus being sales and marketing, what would you say is the biggest sort of learnings that you've gone from hearing these people speak and just talking to them and learning from them? What would you say are some of those lessons that you're drawing from them? Nothing in particular, too. Just
yeah. No, I think there's a really huge importance on listening to your audience.
Yeah.
Listening, like taking a good hard look, following all their, you know, following their accounts and the people who follow them and who they're following, and like really just listening to them, to what they're saying. And from a lens of total openness, because I feel like a lot of marketers sort of project what they feel onto their audience. Like, okay, oh, you have an audience of teenage girls; they all must want to go to Starbucks and drink, you know, you know, and so, but really, maybe they're not. Maybe there are these young girls who are like wanting to do like humanitarian work, and they're, you know, like, who knows, right?
Don't discredit with
but
it.
if you dig into their stories and their social media profiles and their actions online, you can really find out sort of more truth about people and about your audience. And I think that we have the ability to do that now, whereas we didn't before.
It's transparent.
Yeah.
It's really okay.
Yeah, and so I think spending time listening to your audience
is important.
Yeah.
Have you seen any patterns? I'm kind of curious. I mean, from all the speakers that you've had the chance to work with, what patterns have you seen that really make them successful? Like, are there generalities that you've seen from one to the other? You know, like.
Yeah, they all recognize the value of working really hard.
Of course.
Like, I think anyone who's made it.
So rule one, work hard.
Yeah, for sure. They're all very nice and kind. I've had very few.
Be nice people.
The ones that I see that are the most successful
are genuine too, not just nice, like as in a fake, like actually genuine.
Genuinely nice,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely, and care, and that are looking to the future. I think people who are looking
innovative.
Yeah,
interesting.
You know, trying to figure out what's happening and sort of like what I said, listening to their audience and figuring out where the market's going, as opposed to trying to like clamor on to what has always been done.
Their personal beliefs, but actually paying attention to the trends. Like Gary Vee does this very well, and that's where he gets most of his successes. He tells you he's almost like always in tune.
Yeah.
And he steps 10 steps ahead of everyone, and not because he reads articles all day, and because he's actually a practitioner.
Yeah.
And he'll feel when something is going to hit.
Yeah.
You know, so that's interesting to see him do that too.
I know. I think that he's a great example of it. He's a very public example.
Yes.
I think he's finding it. I would say, if I could imagine about him right now, so he's finding it harder and harder because his audience is growing bigger and bigger. So for
just
him,
to stay in tune
with everybody, because now it's almost like he's this celebrity, and I see it happen with him. You know, people are just always trying to pitch him, and they almost see him like this deity. You know, like they're like, oh, if I just touch Gary, I'll suddenly become successful.
Yeah.
And it's a bit, it's a bit of a farce. I mean, he's awesome, and I love him to pieces, but it's the value is what he teaches and what he has.
And for you to apply it yourself.
Yeah.
Not to like get a piece of his clothes.
Exactly. Don't be, and I think I actually saw him post something like this the other day. Like, don't try and be him. Be you, applying the same principles of work ethic and kindness and generosity.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Because I think especially a lot of people try to emulate him in some way. Like, if I'm trying to speak, I'm trying to be like Gary, or if I'm trying to be an entrepreneur, I want to be like Gary.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's great to have people you look up to. I look up to him
as models.
Sure.
I mean, Tony Robbins talks about this all the time.
Yeah, I look up to him. I look up to a lot of people. I have a vision board with different entrepreneurs that I look up to.
But you're taking lessons from
but I'm not like trying to be them.
Exactly.
I want to be myself.
There's a difference.
Yeah, so I think it's important to do that. So yeah.
And what do you envision, say in the next 2-3 years, whether it's Generation Now or Haste Hustle? So what types of events do you really, really want to put together for us?
Well, I want to continue doing the Haste and Hustle events and events for early stage entrepreneurs.
Love that. I'm always going to be there.
Awesome. I do love that demographic. I think they're just a group of passion-filled, beautiful people. And not that, older stage entrepreneurs are not. It's just a different mentality.
Right.
And I find as we progress along as entrepreneurs, we sometimes lose a little bit of touch. Not intentionally and not in a negative way, but just a little bit of, we lose a little bit of touch. And so I really like this. It keeps me fresh and fun. I'm really looking forward to doing the blockchain events. I think that's a really fascinating technology that I'm just...
What is that? Is it set there yet or still in the works?
Well, we have two. So there's one in Niagara in June. And then there's one in Collingwood in October. So keep that in mind, everyone.
Please.
Yeah. And so we're really on the precipice of getting it launched.
Nice. And you actually mentioned this in Gen Now, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're just about to do those. And then I have, and then I'm working on an event for International Women's Day.
Wow.
So I'm pretty excited about that one. I think that'll be something that'll make. I'm very excited about it.
That's amazing.
And just working with clients and all that stuff. But I think supporting, for me also, I love the idea of supporting the the International Women's Day event. It's going to support immigrant women in business. And that means a lot to me, supporting.
Super important.
Yeah, like just supporting.
Can we talk about that just very,
Sure.
I mean, I do want to sort of just hinge on it. I know we did a LinkedIn meetup recently. We had a full panel talking about this. And I just sort of want to touch, because you're also doing an event about it. What are some thoughts? Especially, you know, obviously we live in a especially time right now with the Me Too movement going on and stuff. I just sort of want to pick your brains about it. Being successful women in entrepreneurship, in business, and sales, marketing. You know, what's your mindset around everything that's happening right now? And what advice maybe would you give to someone listening?
I'm kind of like up and down about things. So obviously I'm fully in support of parity for women, and I think we should all have equal opportunity. And I think that there's been a very long history of women being mistreated,
marginalized.
And I've experienced it. It's not fun. But not even just like in a kind of a grand way, just sort of in the day-to-day, like sort of push us up. And I think, but now I see women as, you know, we have a voice. And so now I see, okay, we have this We Too movement. We're trying to move the dial, all these things.
Right.
And okay, I'm like, okay, now we have that voice. Now it's becoming our choice.
Right.
So I feel like we're kind of moving away from, okay, we're not victims of this anymore, although it's still there, it's lingering. But now I see we're moving from victim to the opposite. Like we're taking back that power, and we have that voice. So now it's our choice. And I think that we need to, I've never been one to sit and complain and just toss blame around for too long. I think that's useless.
Right.
So, you know, we see where the problems are. We see how, you know, I see how to fix them. Let's just focus on fixing them. Yeah. And not that that's just like fixed and it's over. It's challenging. You know, there's a lot of like very nuanced issues there, but I think, you know, we're empowered to do so. And now we just need to start making those changes to make that happen. Yeah. And I think that's where we're at. I think there's always going to be people who swing, you know, the pendulum's always going to swing out, and there's going to be people
all kinds of outliers too.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think in the general sense we are moving in the right direction, and I'm really actually excited to be a woman in business now.
For sure.
And
especially in a country, obviously coming from the Middle East, you know, I think it's also, and I know we kind of touched base on this on the LinkedIn meetup, but you know, being in a country where you're also able,
absolutely,
to voice your opinion and to voice your ideas, and for us on both sides to that, just openly and freely talk about it, and then figure out ways we can make this better. Yeah. Recognizing that there's a problem, but also being able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's super important, and just knowing that we're able to do that here.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus other countries where you might be.
I know, and I'd love to see. Yeah, exactly. And I'd love to see that start to shift into other countries too, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
I mean, I think that's just a basic human right that we should all be treated equally.
Yeah.
But you know, I know some countries do lag behind significantly there.
In different levels.
Yeah, for sure. And
it's unfortunate, you know.
It is. But at the same time,
and that's why it's important, though. I think back to what you said. I think Kim highlighted this on the panel, is that like recognizing that too. I mean, you sort of took control of your life. Like maybe a question personally, like did you ever feel like did you always feel like you had control, at least to make a change personally within your own career?
Yes.
Yes.
I was never scared of switching.
Okay.
So and that's where when I was on that panel, I
know you made mention of that.
I felt a little bit different because I don't know, I'm a little bit stubborn that way. I just always did whatever the heck I wanted, and I kind of went for it, and I changed careers completely.
Exactly.
You know, without. I mean, it's not like I don't think about it. I, you know, plan it out appropriately. Sure. But you know, I woke up one day in February and I went to a conference and decided I didn't like being in mining anymore. And I was like, all right. And by September, I was in school for event management.
Right.
And so there was a process there, but I still did it. And I think I mean, so I'm not the norm, I don't think, like on that. And it's not, it doesn't make me special or
you might have maybe a stronger personality.
I don't know. I just always was like a little bit stubborn that way ever since I was a little kid.
I'm just going to do it. If I want to set my
if I want to do it, I'm going to do it, as long as it's like.
But it's a good lesson too, I think, for people who are listening, you know, and maybe just, I guess, a question just to, I guess, end this topic. But What advice would you give, I guess, to young women in business right now who might be in university listening to this, who might want to do event planning, might want to venture into marketing, sales. Some of them are a little more challenging in different ways. And what advice would you give?
Well, I think if you're going into any career, like I think just, work really hard at it.
Yes.
Find the right people to support you. Find a good group of other women who are in business who can support you on different levels that are of success, and just find the job that you want and go and do it. Like we're all like, what's that saying? Like, we're not trees, we can move. I can't remember the quote, but it's like I just always believe, like, if you want to do something, you can do it. If you want to go and take up surfing and become a surf instructor, you can do it. It's just that we stop ourselves because we spend so much time thinking about all the logistics in the way.
Yeah.
Just
sometimes it's fears, like whatever
those logistics and fears and I have responsibilities and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, all those things can be solved if you spend a bit of time figuring them out. I was a little bit nervous to go back to school. I had to figure it out at the time, but it just I sat and figured it out. And I think, if I wanted to go and live in Bali and take up yoga, I could probably do that if I wanted to as well.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, but I think while you're young and you don't have children and and a mortgage, it's just go and try things and do what you want, and have fun doing it.
And this goes for everyone too. So
yeah, men and women.
I appreciate that. High five. You're awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I've linked everything down below. Haste Hustle, Shauna's LinkedIn, Instagram. You'll find everything down there. Make sure to connect. Make sure to check out all the events that she's setting up. If you work for a company and you think that they can benefit from her events, reach out to her. I appreciate you guys listening in. Shauna, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, George.
You better give me commission for this.